So today we're going to go over how we can show changes in supply and demands when we're showing a price quantity supply and demand graph. We're going to be shifting demand supply. So something you might want to have with you is your changes in demand and your changes in supply worksheet. If we're in school, you would have those two sheets of paper next to you, all filled out and well understood. You'd also be able to draw all kinds of graphs in some of the ways that I'd be showing you then. But since times have changed, we're going to have to do this digitally. And I've given you several ways that you can do this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get onto Edsby. When you get onto Edsby, what it's going to look like is, well, once this goes away, you will see the assignment page right here. So if you find the assignment here that says Fun with Equilibrium, all you need to do then is scroll down and you'll find a few ways that you can work this assignment out. Any way's up to you, but make sure you're doing it right. So what you can find is the PDF. If you feel like printing it out and drawing by hand and then doing a scan on CAM scanner and submitting it, quality matters, big warning there. You could also download the PowerPoint file if you already have PowerPoint on your computer. You can save a file to your computer that'll allow you to edit, and you can go from there. Or you can, and this is the most recommended, this link right here, the one that's Hillsborough SharePoint and it's formatted odd, you can go ahead and copy this and you can paste it right in the browser. Now, after a moment of loading, it's going to take you right here. And as I said before, the most important thing is you're going to want to go to File, then go to Save a Copy, and then you hit Save a Copy. The best thing you should do is change its name. So you can put my last name here. Oops. And what it'll do is it'll make you a new file in Office 360. Now, a few things about why Office 360 is great is if you were doing this on your own, you'd be spending like $60 to $100 a year just to have this service, but you get it for free right now because you're in school. Also, this is a way a lot of files from now until your future, and especially in college, you'll be working in Office 360 that way too. All right, other reasons this works is it automatically saves your work. Now, it doesn't submit your work. Next year when we're using Canvas, it will, but for you guys right now, it's actually going to save your work for you. So right now, it's still kind of sitting here spinning, and it's making a new file for us. Once it creates that new file, and I know it takes a moment, and that's why I wanted to show it to you guys, because I didn't want you going like, it broke. No, it takes a minute or two. But once you created the new file, then things go a lot faster. So a few things to point out when you do this is now you have your new one, and now you'll be able to edit and change it. If you use the other file, it has a block that doesn't allow you to change things, so you can't change things and you can't submit your work. Now everything's loading, and what you'll notice up here is this part's gray. You got to wait till it's black, just like it did right there. Once that happens, you should be able to move and edit things, as in you can grab curves like this and move them around. Now, I've noticed a little issue we've been having is with this little yellow box right here. If you want to get it out of your way and just kind of put it over here, that's totally fine. It might help you. You don't have to do that, but just something to help some of you guys out as you're working through this. So let me get back here. Okay. Now, what you need to do is you'll see these if statements right here in these green boxes. What you do is you go back to your class's Edsby page. And in those pages, I've given you a class-specific listing of what's going to happen in each graph. So in graph A, it says if there's an increase in demand. So what you're going to do is go back to this assignment and go, okay, and I'm going to make this easy for me by highlighting this. If there was a, and I already forgot it, so I got to go back. If there was an increase in demand. Okay, so I put if there's an increase in demand. Now, what will make life easier for you is you'll see a little bit of this line flooding over. I recommend going back. It helps the formatting and makes life easier on you and me when I need to grade it, which both of which are important for you. Now, what you'll notice there is if there's an increase in demand, the next part is you want to write in here. If you get this part right, the rest of the graph gets really easy. So we know demand will, well, it says increase right here. So we'll put, now keep in mind, those of you watching it in other classes, you might and very likely have a different assignments. Don't copy what you see now. You need to see what your graph says. So if your first graph says decrease, then you put decrease. All right, if it says supply, then you'd be up here. Now, what that means is if demand will increase, what I can do is I can go ahead and grab this demand curve and increase it. One thing to always remember is an increase in demand always shifts to the right, okay? It's never an up or down thing. If you go up and down, you're gonna get these wrong. And when you start graphing in college and more advanced graphs, when you go up and down, you're gonna be making mistakes because on demand, you can go up and down, but on supply, you've gotta invert it. If you just remember an increase is to the right, because think, this would be 0 on a graph, so an increase is always to the right. A decrease is always to the left, because this would be the big number, and we'd go back this way. So a right is an increase, a left is a decrease. Right, increase, left, decrease. If you get that, this is easy. So I've increased demand. Now, the only thing it says here is there was an increase in demand. So what happens to supply? Well, if you notice, we're going to have a new equilibrium going from here to this equilibrium. But notice the supply curve did not change. I didn't give you any prompt saying supply changes at all. So all you have to do now is this. A lot of people say, well, if you increase demand, that would increase supply. That's not true. It would increase the quantity supplied. So what will happen to supply? Just look at the graph. Demand went from D1 to D2, so demand increased. But supply is sitting right there. It didn't change at all. So we're going to say supply stays the same. Because demand doesn't change supply, and supply doesn't change demand. External factors have to do that. That's what we covered in the changes in supply and changes in demand worksheets. Okay, so I'm most of the way done with this. What I need to do now is make my graph nice. So we were at D1 and S1, but now we have D2 and S1, so we need to go here. Notice I have the price equilibrium there. Well, I've got a price equilibrium to add right here. Now, if you're good at drawing, you can go there and have quality. You can take that. You can even use arrow keys. And just to make things look nice, I'm going to stretch it out so it looks all nice and sharp. Okay, cool. So there's my price. The next thing that I can do is this. I'm going to try to hide that a little bit. All right, the next thing I can do is I can take my quantity here and I'm going to find my new quantity. So that's our equilibrium. That's our new price. And this is our new quantity. And I'm going to stretch it and make it look nice. So here's my new equilibrium. All I need to do now is go, what happens to price and what happens to quantity when there's an increase in demand? Well, we went from PE, that was our original price for this good, and we go to PE2, our new price. And if you notice, well, it went up, so price will increase. And what will happen to quantity? Well, we went to QE to QE2, and we know that quantity will, well, that will also increase. So now graph A is done. And the best part is, if you're using Office 365, you don't need to go back and save it. It's automatically saving right there. So anytime you go through and do something, you'll notice it says saving and then saved, and it's already saved for you. All right, what you now have to do is go ahead to graph B, okay? Graph B is going to have a different prompt. So you can go back to EDSB and you can go, what is graph B? If there's an increase in supply. Okay, so another increase. And what you do is you go back to fun with equilibrium. You go ahead and type if there is an increase in supply. Okay, cool. And then to keep things neat, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these extra lines, and that'll keep things nice. So if there's an increase in supply, well, we know very simply supply will increase. And what's happening to demand? So, okay, I'll grab my supply curve. There's S2, and I know I need to shift it to the right, okay? So because I'm shifting it to the right, I know that my supply is done and demand doesn't change. All I've done in this graph B is increase supply. So demand sits right there. I've got supply right there. And I can go right here and say, what will demand do if supply changes? Well, supply does not ever change demand. It'll change quantity demanded. So what does demand do? It stays the same. Okay, making life easier. All right, now that we've drawn that, we go ahead and add, once again, our new PE2, and then we'll take our new quantity, and we'll go ahead and put it right here. And I'm just going to keep things all nice and neat and reduce it there. Okay, my graph looks good. I got PE2 and QE2. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier. It's not increase like this one. I go from PE to PE2. So what happened to the price of this good? The price went from PE to down to PE2. So the price will decrease. And the next one goes from QE to QE2. And what does that mean? Well, QE to QE2 going to the right, that means the quantity increased. So I can put quantity will increase. I definitely want to go save it, but I'm in Office 365, already saved. And now I'm already done with graphs A and B. Now, for some of you guys, graphs C and D are just going to tell you demand did the thing or supply did the thing. Well, that's going to be easy. If you know how to do A and B, you can figure out how to do C and D. Remember, an increase is always to the right, a decrease is always to the left. All right, but what it might then say, and it's different for each class, so I'll just create one on my own. It might give you a scenario, okay? The scenario could be something like a subsidy is given to producers. Good. Okay, here's where these things can get a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these extra fluffy lines here. So if a subsidy is given to producers of a good, supply will, okay. So a subsidy, if you remember on your changes in demand and supply sheet, it only it only related to one sheet, and that was supply. So we know we're dealing with a change in supply. And a subsidy is a government payment. So if the government pays you to do something, will you make more of it or less of it? The answer would be the government gives you more money to do something and you can still sell it, you'll produce more. So that's going to change supply. So we know that supply will increase. So this is why you want to have your change in supply and demand worksheet. I give you a scenario, you go, what does this relate to? And does that increase or decrease supply or demand? Once you figure that out, that's easy. Supply will increase. Well, I only gave you one scenario. So if one changes, supply, demand will obviously stay the same. All right, so now I know I need to go over here. Supply will increase. Well, we've already done this graph, so this is going to be pretty easy. We can go ahead and take supply, and I put it there. I take my new price, and I line it up. And to make things pretty, I'll extend it. And then I'll take my new quantity right here, and I'm going to, notice the yellow box is not a problem on this one, so just keep in mind, you can leave it, take it away. It's not important. And now I've got this lovely graph. What did my price do? I went from PE to PE2, so the price will decrease. And my quantity, well, I went from QE to QE2 right here. Ooh, okay, so QE definitely shifted to the right. That's an increase, so quantity will increase. All right, so that's how you do graph C, and it's how you do graph D. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and wait to do graphs E and F, and I'll post that on Friday. I hope you guys join me for the Zoom meeting on Friday. That's how we'll go after how double shifts work. And it'll be great because you'll be able to ask me questions on how to do this and submit it. Remember, when you're done, you're going to go to File and Download As, and you can save a copy as a PowerPoint or PDF. PDF is probably the best and the easiest for you. You download that to your computer, submit it to Edsby. When you're finished with A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then you can submit it to Edsby and you'll be all done. So don't forget, you'll still have to do graphs D, E, and F, but hopefully you can figure those all out. All right, I'll talk to you guys on Friday. I hope you have a good time graphing. Bye then.